Okay, so welcome to Unit 4 where we focus on all things related to image maps. And if you don't remember what an image map is, that's okay. We'll refresh your memory on the next few slides, but this is going to focus on images and how we can create different clickable regions in images, and then how we can link that and create a much bigger website as a result. So as I mentioned, our lesson this chapter is about image maps, and today's video is just an introduction to image maps. So this is where you'll need your notes out, and this is where we'll go through a lot of the vocabulary for image maps, and we'll talk about the reasons for image maps and things like that. By the end of this lesson, there are two things that you really should be able to do. You should be able to describe what an image map is and its purpose on a web page, and then you should be able to compare and contrast between the two different types of image maps that an HTML programmer can utilize. So first and foremost, what on earth is an image map? So in front of you, you see a map of the United States, and what an image map is a map that allows you to click on different regions and create links to different websites based on where the user clicks. So for example, I'm going to change my pen color here. For example, you may create an image map around Colorado. So if you clicked on this particular section, it would link to a website about Colorado. And then you have Texas down here, and you'd create an image map around Texas, where if the user clicked on Texas, it would then link to a different website about Texas. And then you have Tennessee over here, so maybe that's a little big, but we'll make that work. Maybe that area would link to a website about Tennessee. So you can notice here that I'm basically stating that this could link to one website, this could link to another, this could link to a third, and essentially depending on where the user clicks will depend where the browser will take the user. It's showing them what type of website that they will actually view. So if they click on area 1, they'll go to Colorado, area 2 to Texas, area 3 to Tennessee, and so on and so forth. And that's what an image map is. It's an image, and depending on where you click, it will map out where you want to go, and then it will display that particular web page. So in previous lessons, we talked about using images as links, and we can use an entire image as a link and just hyperlink that one image to one location. But what we can also do is use something called an image map, and as I told you on the previous slide, that has one or more areas of an image that act as a hyperlink. So depending on where you click, it will take you to different websites, different web pages, different things will happen. And those highlighted areas that link to different spots are called hotspots. So if there are multiple areas on an image map that are clickable, those are called its hotspots. The hot areas where if you click, something will in fact happen. So throughout our time together, we're going to create a real estate website. So I want to show you what this page looks like. But essentially, we're creating a real estate website where the user can click on different areas of the house and actually view a summary of that particular area. So this is the home page that we will be creating together. So you'll notice that I have an image here, as well as some text links here. I have an email address where they can get more information. But essentially, this image here will act as an image map. So, for example, we might have one area that links to the backyard, one area that links to the entryway, one area that links to the dining room, one area that links to the living room, and so on and so forth. So you'll notice that we have different areas that when we click on them, they will link to corresponding areas of the house and display additional information about that particular area. So once we have our image map up and working, we'll link it to a variety of web pages. And this is an example of the entryway. So you'll notice that we have some text that we'll throw in here. We have an image of our entryway, and then we have some text links down below just in case that image doesn't work. So this is an example of the home entry page that we'll be creating. And then here's the living room information. So you'll notice the same kind of pattern of text on the left, then some text links down below, and an image of that living room. Same pattern with the dining room again, text describing it on the left, an image, and text links to the other areas. Same deal here. We have text, picture, and links for the backyard as well. So again, this is the website we'll be creating together. We'll be creating that main home page, and then we'll be linking it to different web pages that then provide additional information about those areas of the house. And we'll show how image maps can really be useful in creating websites where a visual image asking users to click where they want to go can be very, very helpful. So now that we've covered the website that we'll be creating together, the next few slides are going to just cover basic vocabulary that you need to be aware of before we move forward and actually start coding image maps together. So as a reminder, all image maps have to have hotspots on an image, and it's normally more than one. So that's really what we're going to be talking about this chapter is, okay, we have an image, how do we actually create hotspots within that image? And we're going to use different HTML tags to create those clickable areas on that image. So as I mentioned a few slides ago, we're going to be creating an image map for that home, for that real estate home, and we're going to have 4 different hotspots: a hotspot for the backyard, a hotspot for the dining room, a hotspot for the living room, and a hotspot for the entryway. So you can notice already I'm kind of identifying those with different colors. And we need to, at the very, very beginning, before we even start our image map, identify those hotspots and make sure that our image is set up and having hotspots makes sense for that particular image. Now, while image maps are really, really great, a couple of things to keep in mind is that there may be some navigational issues with image maps. So there will be times that a user may not be able to use an image map. For example, if the image doesn't load in. So we've all experienced issues where for some reason our image won't load, the browser is struggling, and as a result the image doesn't load. Well, if the image doesn't load, there will be no links to actually link to, which is kind of a problem. Like, if we don't have the image, we can't click on it, we can't link to other places. Second thing that could give us some issues is if image viewing is turned off by the user. So sometimes users turn it off just because loading in those images takes up so much time, and maybe they have a slower internet speed. So again, there would be no links because our image contains all the links. The other issue may be that the user is using a text-only browser. Again, the image won't load and we'll have no links. So what you're going to notice as we create these web pages together is that the solution is to use text links that kind of accompany the image map. So always having the image and text links ensures that no matter what happens, you'll always be able to link to those other areas. So if the user only has text-based browsers or the image doesn't load, your website can still function. It may not look as nice without that image, but at least the links and the navigation will still work. So here's just kind of an example of if our image didn't load. So it says here there's no image map because you can see that image is having some issues and didn't load. But because we have these text links down here, we're saved. We can still link to those 4 different areas that were contained in this image map because we have those text links down below. So I will be expecting you to have text links that are there to function at for the just in case situation where your image map or your images don't load. So there are quite a few purposes for an image map beyond just a map with states like I showed you on the previous pages or the real estate website. They're actually used quite often. So you'll notice here that I've pulled up, it's kind of an old picture of Amazon, but you can still get the idea behind it. Image maps are constantly used as a button bar. So you'll notice here that this is an image on the screen, but you'll notice here that this is one hotspot in the image map, a second hotspot in the image map, a third hotspot in the image map. So you can click somewhere on that button bar and you actually go to where you'd like to go depending on where you click. That's an image map. Then the second more obvious reason to have an image map is for a map with locations. So here we have a map of various areas in Europe, and we can link the whole country. Maybe we just want to link the city, so the user has to click on the different cities, and we can do that with circles. whatever you choose. But that's kind of the more obvious reason to use them. If you have a bunch of locations, being able to set it up so when a different city or a different country is clicked on, it goes to the appropriate location. So another common use is for the travel industry. So if you've ever gone on a cruise or a plane flight, and you can kind of navigate through that vessel you'll be sailing on or the plane you'll be flying on. So here's an example of, you can click on the deck where you'll be staying, and then within that deck, once you click on it, you're given a choice of rooms. You can maybe select your particular room, and then once you click on your room, it will show you essentially what the room looks like on the inside. Or maybe on a plane, you're trying to navigate, okay, how big is the plane? Where will my seat be? What will the amenities close by be? Things like that. The travel industry uses images a lot to give people a feel for what they'll experience while they're on that trip. So you can see how image maps make it very, very clear. Rather than having to click, 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 click through text, the images provide a more complete picture of how you'll be getting to where you're staying, where your room might be on the ship, and then what your room would look like on the inside. So services also use image maps to make their web page more easy to navigate. So here you'll see that we have a city services website for Arizona where you have the courts, the police, and the fire station. Those are 3 areas where instead of just clicking on text, their website is more engaging because you can click on the picture of what you'd like to see more information about. Same thing with the bridal boutique on the right. You can click on flowers, the dresses and the veils, the rings, or the shoes. You can click on one of those 4 areas and it will take you to view and more information about that topic. And again, it's just more engaging to click on a picture sometimes if you have a really good image map picture than to click on text. Text can sometimes be a little boring, whereas these images jazz up your website a little bit more. So now that we have a good handle of what image maps are, I want to talk about the 2 different sides of image maps. And we have one type of image map that's called a server side and one that is called a client side. So we'll kind of dissect that vocabulary a little bit so we know when a server side image map is appropriate and used and when a client side image map is appropriate and used. So in the server side image map, the image map is still displayed by the client, and notice that client is another word for browser. So in both, the image map is still displayed by a browser in a browser window like Chrome. The big difference comes with how this image map is implemented. So with a server-side image map, it's implemented by a program that runs on the web server. So in this one, the idea is that the server does more of the work. The server actually creates the image map, but the browser is what displays the image map. So noting those differences. In a server-side image map, the server creates it using software on the server, and then the browser is going to display that image map. So to kind of give you a picture of what happens is when that server-side image map has something click on it. So when the mouse clicks, the browser figures out and sends the XY coordinates to the server, because remember, the image map is created by the server. It's saved on the server. It can only be accessed on the server. The server then links to the correct location. So the big thing with server-side image maps is that the server, where that image map is stored and created, it does all of the work. So the browser just displays things. The server gets sent the X coordinates, figures out where it's supposed to go, and then links to that location. So server-side image maps link and do all of the work with a server. Now, in contrast, in a client-side image map, remember client is another word for browser, the browser actually processes the data without interaction with the web server. So this is where all of the information is contained in HTML tags in an HTML file. And what happens is when the XY coordinates are clicked, the browser goes straight into that HTML file, looks where it's supposed to go, and links. So the bottom line here is that the browser does all of the work. So a server-side image map, the server does all of the work, but in a client-side image map, the browser actually does all of the work itself. It doesn't need to reference the web server at all. It just goes straight to that HTML file, figures out where it's supposed to link, and does it all on its own. So now there are advantages and disadvantages to each of these. Advantages of the server-side image map is that it's virtually going to be supported by all browsers. So if it's run using a server program, it's most likely going to malfunction less often. The challenge with this is that it requires additional software on the server, and then having additional software means it needs to be maintained and updated regularly. The second piece is that in order to have your image map on a server, the image map needs to be registered to the server before actually being used. So this one is generally a little bit more work. So it's less likely to have issues and will work in more browsers, but it also is more work because you have to save it onto a server program, and then you also have to register that image map to the server. On the flip side, a client-side image map, especially in our case, really just lessens the work of the server. Generally, these client-side image maps download faster because it doesn't have to send information to the server. It really can just go straight into the HTML code, look where it's supposed to go, and link right away. And as a result of that, it just provides a faster response. The client-side image maps require a little bit less work and then can work a little bit faster, so even though you run the risk of it maybe not working within all browsers, it's really more likely to just be quicker, easier, and if you include text links, if that image map for some reason does malfunction, your user can still navigate your web page. So for those reasons I kind of highlighted on the past few slides, most programmers actually prefer to use client-side image maps, and this is actually what we will use in this class, especially because we're writing all of our code directly into an HTML file. So we will use client-side image maps in this class, but you need to be aware that there are two options. We are just focusing more heavily on that client-side image map. So now that we've talked about image maps a little bit, I want you to do some of your own exploration. So there's a handout in the bin along with worksheet 4A, and I want you to do the exploration first. Really go out and just see what you can find and what resources you can find for image maps before you actually dive in and learn more about them. So what I'd like you to do is find 3 examples of an image map being used on different web pages. I'd also like you to find out the types of image map shapes that we can have. So see what shapes you can find or what you can discover on whatever websites you choose to use as a resource. Maybe figure out what tags might be helpful when using image maps. Figure out what attributes might be helpful and what might the purpose of each attribute used with an image map be. And then finally, maybe figure out what information we need in order to code an image map and how we might find this information. So these are all questions we'll talk through, but we're all kind of realizing that coding, you also have to learn how to kind of explore on your own. So I'd like you to explore image maps first, see what you can find, and then we'll spend the next few days really highlighting those different tags, shapes, attributes, and all the information that we need to really code an image map on our own.